Okay, welcome back to the third piece on our series on musical pitch. And this time we're going to be talking about what is a key. All of our songs are in specific keys, and that means something to us, but we need to know what that means to us, why is it important, and how that relates to the different pitches that we actually sing and their relationships. We're going through this series because musical pitches are not absolute. They're defined by their relationships to one another. The fact that there is a C on this keyboard here and that there is a C in your chart does not mean that C is the only way to do something. That C means nothing on its own. It exists in relationship to the pitches around it. And talking about keys today is going to really help you identify how those relationships come together. Why should we care about this? We should care about this because understanding our music and our songs will allow us to be better leaders of others. We'll be able to lead them to participate rather than being led by our song. If our song is leading us because we don't have a good grasp of it, we are going to do a poor job of bringing others into participating with us. Think about a pastor who hasn't really studied the subject matter and is preaching out of an outline that he didn't write. And so he's just reciting the information there, and it might all be good biblical truths, but you probably won't, as a participant in that congregation, be able to connect to them well because they didn't take the time to dive in and bring that into themselves as something that they can continue to share and continue to interact with you as somebody sitting in the seats. We have to do the same thing that the preacher does when we prepare our music as we seek to understand our songs. Okay? So let's talk about what is a key. What is a key? A key is a group of pitches, or a subset of pitches maybe, that have specific relationships to a primary pitch. That would be the key's name. So we said the key of C, the primary pitch is a C. The combination of these pitches from the bottom to the top in a single octave, that's called a scale. So if you've ever heard somebody say you need to practice your scales, they're talking about practicing, playing, or singing all of the pitches within a key through either a single octave or multiple octaves, but they're talking about doing all those things from the bottom to the top. Most of the music that we do here is in major keys. And every now and then we'll do something that's in a minor key, but that's very, very few and far between. There is a pattern to the scale of a major key. And it happens in every major key. If you learn this pattern on your keyboard and you learn this pattern in your head, you can start it on any primary pitch, play that pattern up, sing that pattern up, and you will be singing that whole key's pitches that we work with it. And the easiest way to see this is looking at the key of C. The key of C has no accidentals in its key signature. It's only white keys on your piano, and it makes it so much easier to see this pattern. Get it? It's easy to see the pattern in the key of C. That was dumb, but we got to keep it in there because I'm dumb. Some of this is definitely getting edited, but not all of it. Anyways, it's really easy to see the scale pattern in the key of C because it's only white keys. So the last session we talked about finding middle C, and we talked about that every time you see a set of two black keys, the white key immediately to its left is a C. And so we could find a set of two black keys on our piano, and the white key immediately to its left is a C. And then if we go up, we go C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and we're back to another C, and that's a scale pattern. And so then we can just count our half steps. C to a D, that's 2 half steps. D to an E, that's 2 half steps. E to F, that's 1 half step. F to G, 2 half steps. G to A, 2 half steps. A to B, 2 half steps. And then B back to C is a half step. Now, 2 halves make a whole. And so if you were a first-year music student taking a music theory class, they would teach you that this scale pattern is called whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And you know what? That's even easier to see than you realize, because every time there's a black key, that's a whole step, because it's 2 half steps to get over that black key. So whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. I cannot tell you why this works the way that it works. I can just tell you that this works the way that it works. Because when we came to the conclusion of what a major scale was going to be, a bunch of people got their heads together, studied the music of history, and said, hey, look, all these guys made music that sounds pretty happy, and they all use the notes that kind of fit this pattern, so let's call that a major scale. And that's it. A bunch of people just agreed on it, and they didn't really decide why or figure it out because they didn't care. So I can't tell you why this works. This is one of those things, unfortunately, you have to memorize this kind of a thing most of the time. Except that you don't, because you know that if I start on a C and I just play all the white keys, I can see it. And that's what matters, right? Figuring out how to find the information that we need is more important than memorizing the information that we need. So let's listen to that. We're going to come over to the keyboard. I'm going to start on a C. And you're going to hear the major scale. C. And you've almost certainly heard that 1,000 times before in your life. And I can start this anywhere and do the same pattern of whole, whole, half. So I can even start on a black key. I'm going to start right here. I'm going to go for a whole step, then a whole step, a half step, whole, 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 half. And it sounds the same. Does that same thing. Listen again. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And I won't talk this time. Works. So I can start here also, and I can do the same thing. And it makes the same set of sounds. It creates that major key sound. We use these subsets of pitches to really define how we're going to sing and operate. So almost every time we have a key, you won't be singing or playing anything that comes out of that key. That's not universally true. We do things, we bring in stuff from other places, from other keys, and that can make our music more interesting. But 90 to 95% of the time in the music that we're doing here, if you figure out what those notes are, you'll be able to figure out that any of those notes, those are going to be the notes that we're singing, almost without fail. Okay, so what are some practical exercises that we can do to help us understand keys, and better, even more so, to help... Dang it! What word did I say? Don't think so, but that's okay. Okay. So what are some practical exercises that we can do to help us become familiar with keys, and even more so to help us get used to listening to those relationships within the key? The first thing is to download a keyboard app on your phone. In every video so far in this series, I have said that you should download a keyboard app on your phone. It is an invaluable tool to any musician. Whether you are an instrumentalist or a vocalist, this is a tool that you need. The next thing is take that major scale pattern and start it from different pitches. Start it in all over your keyboard, all over your piano, all over your phone app, wherever you're doing. Find that pattern. Start with the key of C because you can see it. Look at that. Remember to think about it in terms of half steps. Go start it somewhere else. Right? And you'll see that these exercises are going to build on the exercises we've done. So if you previously wrote the note names on all of the keys on your keyboard, you're going to be able to find those a little easier. If you've been writing down your distance and half steps within your charts that you've been doing that, you're going to find these kinds of things easier. All these different exercises really build on top of one another to create more purposeful exercises that are going to let you take these, apply them to your music, and then begin to understand your music better. The third thing you can do is do ear training exercises within a key. In the first video, when we talked about those pitch relationships in terms of half steps, that's really breaking everything down to its most fundamental unit of measurement, a half step. How many half steps is this? So figuring those kinds of things out is really helpful, but also listening to the distance from one pitch to another and realizing that most of the time we're only going to use pitches within a specific key. So I'm going to come over here, we're going to do one real quick. We talked about that major second, it was 2 half steps. And we played that whole of Happy Birthday, that whole first line of Happy Birthday. And we started trying to evaluate this major second. Then we had our perfect fourth, major fourth, perfect fourth. Then we had a minor second back down, minor second. And those are all, you'll notice, white keys. I'm doing this in the key of C. And so you can take that in the key of C and you can do different ear training exercises. We're listening to that fifth. And then you go maybe down a third. And you keep those different pitches within that key. Then what you're learning to listen to is things within the construct of the key. If you're doing ear training exercises, you're practicing a song, you're going to find that it naturally exists within a specific key. And you can even change those keys. We can go to something like the key of G. I can still do things like my Happy Birthday, or I could just be working on listening to all the different intervals that happen. Maybe I want to just hear this. And I can hear all those different intervals just to get used to listening to them, right? Now I'm not going all the way up the scale, and I would have to stop and figure some of these out, so I could do that right now. I can pick a pitch here, find my whole, half, whole, half. I can find that, just like any of you could now that we've talked through those. I can practice listening to the different spaces. That's my first one. That's my second one. That's my third one. That's the half step. Whole, half. That's an octave. And then I could even use that and go back the other way. And I can listen to all those different spacings between different pitches here. And I might even go around that fundamental pitch sometimes, right? Sometimes we go above and below. So maybe I go down. And I just get used to listening around there. And it's worthwhile to sing those. La, 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 la. That's an interval that I can find. It's 1, 2, it's 3 half steps. It's minor third. La, 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 la. I can get used to those. I can practice those. I can practice listening to all the intervals that can happen in a key. And I can get used to hearing them in the key. So that's it for what is a key and some practical exercises that you can do to help familiarize yourself with keys. As we get through these different things and as you start to understand how keys work, I highly recommend you start just applying this to your music. You stop doing these abstract things that I'm talking about right now as we start to learn how these pitches relate. Start using a piece of music that you have and working on the intervals that are there and getting used to those intervals and understanding them better. Because what you're going to find is as you continue to find those patterns within that scale, you get used to listening to things within a major key, within a scale. You'll find that almost all of our music reuses a lot of those patterns. And you will be able to use those things that you've learned again.